will have Tammy Tegron, she is a painter, and she is also the gallery owner of Color Wheel Gallery, 46th, I think, living. So we are going to, and then the next week, we will have Ivory Dublet, who will be doing some theater and things like that. And you can see it was to be determined, but we are going to have the Ukrainian Village Band is going to be with us in the Lakeview Room on May 25th. So we just appreciate you coming out for these conversations as we celebrate our faith, as we celebrate art, and being in community together. So before I introduce Joe, Kirk is going to read a quick land acknowledgement statement for us.
So I'll do the land acknowledgement statement that Don Lake has written, so we can be mindful of the past as we work toward a more just present and future. Today we acknowledge that we gather as Diamond Lake Lutheran Church on the traditional land of the Wabakut Band of the Santee Division of the Dakota people, past and present. We further acknowledge that both the state of Minnesota and the United States government carried out genocide, ethnic cleansing, forced removal, and broken provinces against the Dakota as a way to acquire land. We honor with gratitude the land itself and the people who have stewarded it throughout the generations. This calls on us to commit to continuing to learn how to better be stewards of the land that we inhabit.
I will. Joe Davis is here with us tonight. He is. I'll let you give your credentials and all of that. He also has some merchandise and things like that in the back. So if you want to, I'll be kind of working the table back there if you want to come and check it out. So Joe, thank you for being here.
So my name is Joe Davis. I am an artist in the community. I live in North Minneapolis. When I say I'm an artist, I do a lot of different things. Poetry is my first love. I do spoken word poetry, also do theater and music and a little bit of dance. Tonight's going to be a night of poetry with Joe Davis, poetry and conversation. So I'll be sharing some of my poems, but I also really care a lot about holding space for conversation. So any given time, if you have questions or comments, I'm open to that. And I also intentionally will leave some time towards the end for a Q&O. And I was just hanging out at this conference the other day with Nadia Bowles, whoever was there. I don't know if anyone made it out. And she said she doesn't say Q&A anymore. She says Q&O because that's more honest. Q&O means questions and opinions because she feels she doesn't have any answers. I resonate with that. So I think I want to start saying that too. So Q&O, we'll have space for that as well. But as an artist, I love to have pieces that are interactive and that invite crowd participation. And so for my first piece, I'm going to invite you all to join me in this performance. And so all it requires is when I put my fist in the air, you are going to say, "We take action now." All right, can we try that? The refrain, the hook goes, "We ain't backing up and we ain't backing down. We rise higher together, we
take action now."
Yeah, that was pretty good. Can you give it up for yourselves? Give it up. Yeah. You can clap, you can snap. One of the things with spoken word poetry in particular, and oftentimes you may see, if you ever go to a poetry reading or a poetry competition, which we call poetry slams, you may see people snapping. And the reason why that is because historically, when poets like in the 30s and 40s and 50s, when poets were sharing poetry in coffee houses and lounges and bars, instead of people getting really rambunctious and saying, "Woo, yeah, we love it, oh yeah, it's a great poem," they would just snap. And that was a way to affirm what was being said without disrupting the speaker. And so I always tell people, you can snap, even if it's not a poem. If someone's just saying something that you like I work with a lot of high school students, and I say, if your teacher says no homework today, class, you can still "Oh yeah." So you might catch me snapping at anything you all say, and you're more than welcome to snap when I'm sharing poetry. If I say a line or something that just connects with you, that resonates with you, I invite that, because that lets me know that you're vibing with me, that you're rocking with me. So, "Take Action Now" is the name of this poem. It goes like this. This moment is our inauguration. This moment, we are no longer waiting. People of every race, nation, and generation come together in this moment we are creating. Because we ain't backing up and we ain't backing down. We rise higher together. We
take action now.
Yeah. This is not for the applause of the audience, but to build strong the world in which we long to live. A love letter written beyond the pen, the dance in our breath, the song in our skin. This is the moment we dare to begin, where our fears end, where the bruised and the broken restore, repair, and amend. Because we ain't backing up and we ain't backing down. We rise higher together. We
take action now.
Yeah. We ain't staying static or stagnant. We changing the status. Because we know change ain't automatic. We have to make it happen. We turn our pain into power and our wounds into wisdom. In this moment, we honor both elders and children. In this moment, the stories we tell can help heal them. In this moment, our expressions of joy are resilient. Because we ain't backing up and we ain't backing down. We rise higher together. We
take action now.
Yeah. Inspirational, unwavering, bold, confident, inclusive. We are the students of the revolution. We are the music that keeps the movement moving. We are the past, present, and the future. We put the us in justice and the soul in solution, making a resolution to not just talk about it, but to do something. For our legacy speaks volumes of who and what we care about, with the way we live our lives, say it loud and say it proud, with courage and compassion, till we have no doubt that this is the moment we take action now. Yeah. I can tell you can snap, you can clap, whatever you feel. After the poem's done, you can clap again. Yeah. So those are the types of pieces I like to do. I oftentimes say I don't come alone. I'm just one voice of the collective many. And I come in the strength of my community and the strength of my ancestors. I am who I am because of somebody loving me. Right? There's this South African concept called Ubuntu, which I talk a lot about. Ubuntu, that's U-B-U-N-T-U. Can someone say that when you say Ubuntu?
Ubuntu.
Ubuntu. That means I am because we are. A person is a person through other people. This concept was popularized by Archbishop Desmond Tutu. Rest in power, he passed not too long ago. And also Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. talked a lot about it as well. And Dr. King, he would say we are all woven inextricably into one garment of destiny. Either we learn to live together as brothers, and I would add as sisters or siblings, or we perish as fools. And it really just speaks to this heart, this essence of how we are so much more interdependent than we can even possibly fathom, we can possibly imagine. That the Creator, Most High God, meant for us to be together. Dietrich Bonhoeffer, who's a theologian that I studied when I went to Lutheran seminary, he talks about, oftentimes you may hear the phrase Imago Dei. Has anyone ever heard that before? Imago Dei. That means the image of God. And he says we see the image of God in each person, right? That's what that idea is. But Dietrich Bonhoeffer, he talked about Imago Relationis. And what that means is that God is a God of relationship. That the image of God is found not only in the faces of those in our community, but in the community in and of itself. That God wove this fabric of our very being to be interconnected with each other, to be in communion with each other. That's what it is, Imago Relationis, right? That's what I believe, and that's how I move through life. I feel we are all family, right? And so I wrote a piece about that. I want to share that with you all here today. It's from my new book, We Rise Higher. I'm really excited to share this with you all. I wish I had more copies. I actually sold out of the copies. So I don't have any with me inside. Yeah, we can celebrate that. Yeah, if you do want to get a hold of any of these copies, so you'd have to go to Spark House, who published it. So we are sparkhouse.org. But I'll be reading some poems from it tonight. This first piece being a piece called Kinship. And it just talks about that spirit of connectedness, that spirit of community that I think we're all part of. Here we go, Kinship. A poem to honor friends. Whenever I am lost and forget who I am greeted with our friendship. Tracing like a map, fingertip to fingerprints, pointing me to the recollection of memories. back to our first love, our purpose, where our purest intention is, the reason of our existence. I find the outline of our fingerprints while sitting, talking, eating lunch. I do this in remembrance for the times when I keep forgetting that, as we all forget. I am an extension of us. Just you and me, sipping coffee or tea. When gathered, something sacred stirs in the midst. In this moment, our presence is the truest gift. Since the beginning, what has sustained and strengthened us has always been in us. No need to be siblings to share the sacred lineage. No need to look alike to bear our family resemblance. We're not forsaking the assembly of ourselves. We are reassembling ourselves with each other's help. We are all descendants ascending into this kinship. Whether shed or shared, no blood is as thick as this. When we reminisce, we revisit home, more alive and less alone. Kinship. And so that's a big part of the work that I do is around connecting the communities, building community, using art as a catalyst. I think so oftentimes we move through life so fast, right? We have so many demands each and every single day. We wake up, we have demands from our work, demands from our family, and we get tugged in so many different directions. But I think art has this amazing way of inviting us to slow down, right? To pay closer attention to our bodies and our spirits and the bodies and spirits around us. I think that's where we can start to really deepen our relationship and deepen these communities. When we talk about justice work in the world and healing work in the world, I think all of this work moves at the pace of relationship. Sometimes we want to plant that seed and eat the fruit the same day, but we got to cultivate the soil. And that takes patience and grace and slowing down. I'm not a gardener, but I just know how it works, right? We have a community garden where I live at, and I've seen the process, and it's really gorgeous to see, but I think about how I've never heard a flower grow. I've never heard a tree grow. But you can keep checking in and then tending the soil. You can not only see it happen, but you can be a part of cultivating that process. I think our relationships work the same way, and change in the world works the same way. It moves at the pace of our relationships. Our relationships with God, our relationships with each other, our relationships with ourselves. So how do we slow down enough to tend to those relationships? That's what I'm always asking myself. I think that's what art can invite us into, is slowing down enough. So we don't just become cogs in the wheel of life, right? We can become not human doings, but human beings. And so I have some practices. I love words. I love playing around with like mantras and affirmations and things like that, or prayers, offerings that I speak over myself and others. So I have a new affirmation that I've been saying. I have different affirmations that I say in different seasons of my life that I feel I needed. And one of the things that I need to be reminded of in this process of slowing down and tending to my body and spirit is I am good and worthy of love. I am good and I am more than enough. Because there's so much negative messaging that we get inundated with on a regular basis from those demands that pull us every which way. We can feel like we're just not up to snuff. But what brings us back to that grounding and centering? So I have what I call my rising ritual. When I get up in the morning, before anyone or anything else, before I even turn on my phone, before I turn on my computer, and I sit and I have a moment of prayer and meditation. I can speak these words over myself. I feel more centered and grounded. Now, I've noticed the difference between when I have that time for myself and when I don't. Because when I don't have that time for myself, I feel like anyone ever played pinball? The pinball machine? And you see the little metal ball and it's like bouncing around back and forth. Anything that it touches, it bounces and bounces and back and forth. And that's how I can be with like whatever people say and whatever people do. I'm like scattered and all over the place, right? Like a pinball in a pinball machine. But when I have that time of prayer and meditation and grounding and centering, then I can show up more like a strong, firm tree that's rooted. The wind may blow and I may bend, but I won't break. And so I've noticed the difference in how I show up. And that's why These sorts of things are really important to me. So I want to offer this to you and invite you into that practice. And so I want to invite you all, if you can just do like a steady little like snap like this. Yeah, there we go. I like it. I'm digging it. Okay, so this affirmation, we're going to do it together. And this has 3 parts. And you can repeat after me. And it's kind of a rhythm to it too, that's why we're snapping. So if you feel like you're not a person who has a lot of rhythm, it's okay. We're doing it together. Like I said, we don't have it all together, but together we have it all. So it goes like this. It goes, I am good, I am worthy of love. I am good, I am worthy of love. Say that with me. I am good, I am worthy of love. I am good, I am worthy. It's kind of like a little jazzy. I am good, I am worthy of love. I am good, I am more than enough. Say that. I am good, I am worthy of love. I am good, I am more than enough. When you put it all together. I am good, I am worthy of love. 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 And after that, we say, I am good, I am worthy of love. I am good, I am more than enough. Let's try that. I am good, I am worthy of love. I am good, I am more than enough. In this part, you say, you turn to somebody and you're going to say, you are good. All right? See if we can do all those at the same time. Snap and say it. But you're going to say, you're good and worthy of love. And then you're going to say, you're good and you're more than enough. In that same rhythm. So I'll say it first. It goes, you are good, you are worthy of love. You are good, you are worthy of love. And then I say, you are good, you are worthy of love. You are good, you are more than enough. Let's try that. Turn to somebody. You are good, you are worthy of love. You are good, you are worthy of love. Can you say, you are good, you are worthy of love. You are good, you are more than enough. Yeah, there we go. All right, we're going to do it one last time. But this time we're going to say, we are good. All right, all together. We're going to follow that same rhythm. Just take it to the groove. Just have fun with it. Let's try it out. Here we go. You say, we are good. We are worthy of love. We are good. We are worthy of love. Yeah. We are good. We are worthy of love. We are good. We are more than enough. One more time. Let's try that. We are good. We are worthy of love. We are good. We are worthy of love. Yeah. We are good. We are worthy of love. We are good. We are more than enough. Yeah, give it up for yourselves. So my hope and my prayer is that you can be intentional about creating the time in your space in your life to have some sort of practices, right? That can center you, that can ground you, that can remind you of who you are and whose you are, right? That's what those prayers and affirmations are for me. And what works for me may or may not work for you. I realize that everyone has to find what works for you. Right? Some people are like, oh, this affirmation thing, I don't know what he's trying to get us to do. Right? Which is totally okay. Maybe you like to listen to music. Right? Maybe you like to dance. Maybe you just like to sit and read scripture. Right? Whatever that may be for you, I just want to encourage you to be intentional about creating time for it. Because I've come to realize that if I don't prioritize that time for myself, no one else is. If I don't slow down, sooner or later, life is going to slow me down. Something will happen where I have to slow down. I was getting to the point where I kind of fell into this unhealthy pattern where I was just going, just working. And I was running on E, metaphorically and literally, where my car almost didn't have enough gas to get to one of my gigs, right? And I wasn't taking the time to like eat and to sleep and to care for myself. But I realized, okay, I need to slow down, I need to breathe, I need to refocus and recenter. And that definitely changed the whole game for me. So I just want to offer that as an encouragement to find that space for you all, for yourselves. We can do it together, right? Sometimes you need to have like a partner, a family member, a friend, someone to hold you in love and accountability, to cheer you on, to help you keep moving, because we're not meant to hold this stuff and do this alone. And so I wrote a poem, a new poem actually, about that I want to share. This one isn't in my book. It's in fact so new, I actually debuted it at that event I was at with Nadia Bowles-Weber. I want to share with you all tonight because I think it speaks to that slowing down. It's called Don't Show Up. And the reason why that may be kind of funny is because a lot of people know me as like the show up person. Like I've actually made videos about it. I appreciate the love. I still think we still do need to show up, right? But some of us are Lutherans, and like any good Lutheran, we believe in paradoxes, right? And so there's a time to show up and a time not to show up. Like Luther would say, he would call it summa justus evocatus, if I can get it right, the saint and the sinner. right? And we have to have this rhythm, right? This rhythm that's in our life. We all have the capacity for that those paradoxes that exist within us. So yes, I do believe that showing up can be incredibly powerful, especially when you choose to show up unapologetically and bring your full self. I think something magical happens. And I think that not showing up can be just as radical when there's times that you don't need to show up. And I haven't been as well practiced at saying no and not showing up when I don't need to show up. And so I want to invite you out of this practice. Maybe you're like me and need to be reminded of this too. And so I'll share this with you in hopes that this can serve as one of those reminders. I wrote it and I have it here on my phone. So I usually don't like to read on my phone, but that's where the poem is, so I'm going to read it from here. Yeah. But this is actually pretty exclusive. You're only the second crowd that's ever heard this poem aside from church. So, yeah. So let me know how you feel about it. I'm still kind of testing it out a little bit. Don't show up. A poem for when showing up just ain't it. If this could have just as easily been a text or an email instead of a meeting, don't show up. If you're filling their quota is all that they're needing, don't show up. If you would go, but then later on wish that you would have stayed, don't show up. If you're being overworked and underpaid, don't show up. If you literally rather would be doing anything anywhere else, don't show up. If you being there would jeopardize your mental health, don't show up. If you don't need a survey, a graph, or a chart to know that this place can't properly care for your heart, don't show up. If they say they want you now, but didn't want you from the start, don't show up. If bringing your full self would somehow make you wrong, don't show up. If you need to keep your heart soft, but you're bound to be strong, don't show up. If this will make you question your safety or your sanity, don't show up. If they'll honor their comfort more than your humanity, don't show up. If they don't enthusiastically support your choice to be sober, don't show up. If you're being offered a seat at a table your ancestors would have flipped over, don't show up. If they want to jump to healing and repair before they confess and repent, don't show up. If they assume they know what's best for you and don't practice consent, don't show up. If there are parts of yourself you have to deny or hide, don't show up. If it doesn't make you feel more healed, whole, or alive, don't show up. If the world needs you well and you need to rest, don't show up. If you need to let your no make room for your yes, don't show up. Because no is your choice. Because no is your commitment. No needs no explanation because no is a complete sentence. No need for punctuation, no need for explanation, no need for an apology when you're allowed to just say it. You can reclaim your time and reclaim your space. For all you've given away, you can receive more grace. Because sometimes the best way to really show love to others and yourself is when you don't show up. Thank you. Reminder to practice the art of saying no, the art of not showing up when it's needed. That's something that I'm still learning, I'm still growing into. But I think that poetry for me and music for me, they oftentimes serve as reminders, right? When I hear a song that I really like, I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. That's a good thing to be mindful of. And I think that that's what I try to offer for other people as a poet, as an artist, just kind of offering these holy reminders of who we are and what's possible together, and ways that we can show up that are healthy, that are whole. So yeah, let that be something that you can sink into. I'll read a few more poems from here, and then I also want to make sure that we have enough time for questions and answers in the conversation, or actually questions and opinions in the conversation. So I'll read a couple of my favorite poems from here. One of them is a poem that I wrote at the beginning of the pandemic. when we were all going through it, we were all carrying so many emotions. And I don't know about you, but for me, I was really trying to like run away from my emotions. I didn't want to sit with it. I was like binge watching Netflix and doom scrolling on my phone. I talk about the news. I don't think they should call it the news. They should just call it the worst things that are happening near you. Because that's what it is, right? When you look at it, we're inundated with so much negativity all the time. But I was just trying to get away from the heaviness that I felt. I think the heaviness that I felt wasn't only because of the pandemic, but it was because of so many other things, right? I mean, the George Floyd uprising happened that year. I know so many different things were going on in our relationships and in our emotional states. I'm a huge advocate for therapy. I have a therapist myself. Just it's good to have someone to check in with. I like to say you can have Jesus and a therapist, right? And you know, I've had you know, my relationship with anxiety and depression and finding healthy resources, healthy supports to work through that kind of stuff. I was carrying some of that and carrying just the weight of the world that we were all feeling. Sometimes even right now today, I'm certain that some of us are still feeling that, right? We're on the struggle bus. What do we do with all of that? I know for me, I didn't know what to do with it, but my body was holding it. And then I had this really distinct moment where I felt like the Spirit was just tugging at my heart and telling me to be still. Be still. Know that I am God and I am with you. And so I hadn't been doing my practices, like my affirmations and my meditation, right? But I took a moment and I sat at the edge of my bed and I just started to listen. And I felt like in my gut, I felt this vibration, and I didn't even notice it was there the whole time. But I started to realize it, and I realized, wow, it was like in my chest too. It started to rise and rise and rise, and it was shaking. And the more I listened to it, the faster the vibration was shaking in my whole body. I'm like, wow, that feels like a lot of anxiety right now. Like I just named it. I was like, that feels like anxiety. Like my whole nervous system is frazzled. But then I listened even closer. I was like, there's even something bigger underneath this anxiety. And then I began to continue to listen. And underneath it, I felt this deep, deep, deep sadness. This deep sorrow that was under the anxiety. And it was rising and rising. And I felt it rise to my eyes. And I felt this urge, like I needed to cry. And admittedly, I was a little resistant at first. I was like, I don't want to cry. Like, especially growing up as a boy and as a man, like I was socialized to not express my emotions, but to repress my emotions, right? I don't know if any other men in the room can relate to me, right? Yeah, that's just the way we're taught by society and culture, and it's not always intentional, but that's the messaging that we get, right? And so I had internalized some of that, but I still felt the Spirit like calling me, saying, just be still, just know I am God. And I remember that God is big enough to hold this, and so I just let go. I just surrendered to that moment. And I began to cry. I didn't just cry, like I wept. I ugly cried. I had like the snot bubbles and everything. And it was just pouring out of me uncontrollably. Like it just poured out of me. And after I had that moment of surrender and release, I physically felt lighter. Like my body didn't feel like it was carrying around the weight of the world anymore. I felt like I could move through the world with more ease. And it didn't magically make everything in my life better, but I felt more whole, and I felt more connected to God because I feel like I had released it and I had given it to God. And so this poem was birthed from that experience. And it's called "You Gotta Cry Sometime," and I'd like to share it with you all. Just kind of like a prayer and a meditation about tears. I sat in silence on the edge of my bed, with traffic jam thoughts piling inside of my head. Nerves vibrating tightly like a spider web thread, and I gently covered my chest with the palm of my hand. It felt like a part of me bleeding, like every part of me leaving, even the God I believe in. I thought in secret, is this what they call grieving? I was bobbing and weaving till I started releasing, so hard I was heaving from the sobbing and weeping. This was the moment I finally let go. A moment the floodgates could no longer withhold. The moment I surrendered and lost all control. Let the holy waters wash over my soul. Holy water, Holy water, cleanse me, wash me, hold me gently, hold me softly. Jesus wept. These tears have taught me to weep is human, to weep is godly. When I gave permission for the waves to rise, waters gathered like a choir in the aqueduct of my eyes, singing psalms of lament with each changing tide, baptizing my breath with every bathing sigh. Tears of mercy and justice kissed, rolling down my chin to meet. Rivers of righteousness slid round my cheek like a mighty stream. These waters have shown me crying is not a sign of being weak, but love's persistent flow within us during our time of grief. Holy water, cleanse me and wash me. Hold me gently, hold me softly. Jesus wept. These tears have taught me to weep is human, to weep is godly. I am not broken, I am breaking open. My heart is learning the art of staying open. No need to fight to hide inside, try not to let somebody know. I need to cry to remind my eyes to see where new life might flow. Tears make my eyes swell. Tears make my eyes well. I feel a little lighter now. I see a little light here now. There's something in the water that heals more than time can tell. These waters won't recede until they've watered every seed, and we may be in need to wash, rinse, and repeat. Holy water, cleanse me and wash me. Hold me gently, hold me softly. Jesus wept. His tears have taught me to weep is human, to weep is God. Prayer is that we can normalize crying. We have tear ducts for a reason, right? And sometimes you may hear somebody say, "Oh, I'm so sorry, I'm crying." I'm like, don't apologize for being human. Don't apologize for expressing your emotions. I think that feeling is healing. And there was a time where I would repress my emotions, even as an artist, as a poet, right? That's what I do a lot of times, but I would still kind of tuck some things away. But I realized that if I don't find a safe and healthy way to express it, it's still going to come out sideways. One way or the other, these emotions are going to come out. Sometimes it can come out in ways that harm ourselves or harm others. So how can we express ourselves in ways that are adding to our healing, right? The way that I frame it nowadays, when different emotions come and they may be uncomfortable, they may be heavy, I look at my emotions as teachers and as friends. And I try to sit down and have some coffee or tea with my emotions and say, okay, what are you here to tell me? What are you here to teach me? Because oftentimes my emotions are pointing me towards something. They're saying, hey, you need to get some more rest. Or hey, you are angry, and you're angry because there's something that you want to change. Maybe you can change it, maybe you can't. Maybe you need to find ways to forgive yourself or forgive someone else and find some sense of peace. Maybe you're sad because your heart is broken and you're grieving a loss of someone or something. How do you allow the space to grieve that? These are sorts of things that my emotions have come to tell me and to teach me. So how do I reframe the way I look at my emotions? Okay, I don't need to just brush them aside or hide them or deny them. But how can I listen to the healing wisdom that they offer? That's been profoundly transformational in my life to create space for that. And so I just want to offer that to you as a prayer. Hopefully that can be something that's helpful for you as well. So I just want to share a couple more poems and then give us some time for some conversation here. Let's see, another one of my favorite poems is this one called In Comparison. So I got to go to the contents to know what page it's on. But I think, as someone who's very active on social media, if you ever want to follow me on social media, you can definitely check out my stuff on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Just look up Joe Davis Poetry on any social media. But I see on social media especially, there's so much comparison, compare and contrast, ourselves to others, others to ourselves. And a lot of times, we're just seeing like the highlights of somebody's lives, right? The glitz and the glam. You don't see the grimy stuff and the messy stuff. Like when someone was first learning how to do what they're showing us the finished product of right now. And I do that as well. I like to show people, like, this is a new project that I'm coming out with that I'm really excited to share with people. But I'm also trying to get in the habit of showing people, okay, yeah, this is like the in-between process or the behind-the-scenes process that isn't as pretty. But we compare ourselves a lot. It's like this ongoing thing. But how do we like just rest in the moment of being enough, right? So I wrote a poem just processing that, just reflecting on that. It's called In Comparison, a poem about being enough. A forever spinning competition carousel, a never-ending non-stopping Ferris wheel. Will I ever be good as everyone else? Try to be everything but never myself. Like a pair of children in comparison, fighting over our parents' love. Like we're in the ring wearing a pair of gloves. I can't bear to look. It tears me up how it tears us up. Someone's always one tier above. Will we learn to live together or perish alone? What shared legacy are we carrying on? Forever spinning competition carousel, a never-ending non-stopping Ferris wheel. Will I ever be good as everyone else? Try to be everything but never myself. Who's inferior when the same earth cares for us and buries us? Who's superior when we all share the same air in our lungs? The proof is right there in our thumbs, a fingerprint marking that there is but one you, one me. Nothing compares to us. Ordinarily extraordinary, and we are enough. So in each poem in the book, there's an invitation. I haven't been reading the invitations, but I do like to read this one. I care a lot about like how do we embody these things, right? How do we have practices for these things? So the invitation for this one, I say, write a list of some things you love about yourself. Place this list on your bedroom nightstand, next to your bathroom mirror, or somewhere else you will see it often. So there's different invitations like this, but I think that's something really special to invite yourself into. Say, what is it that I love about myself? I think we're really good at like negative self-talk, and we have a strong inner critic. And sometimes that can be motivation, and we can kind of see areas we need to grow, but also it can come to unhealthy proportions, right? To where that's all we're saying, that's all we're thinking. But how are we saying, you know what do I actually love about myself? How do I see myself through the eyes of God, right? A loving creator. I don't think God is comparing us to each other, like, oh, I love that one way more than I love this one, because they're, no, God, we're all beloved children of the Most High God. And so how do we remind ourselves of that? That's what that piece is about. So I'll just read a couple more pieces, and then I'll create some space for conversation. If anyone has any questions, you can get them ready. But this next piece is called Commercial Break. And it's just a fun piece. I don't know if you've noticed, but I'm somewhat of a rhymesmith. I grew up with Tupac and Dr. Seuss, so I like to play with words, I like to play with rhymes. Some of my favorite poets growing up, I really loved Shel Silverstein and Roald Dahl. And these are poets who had a way with words that was really playful and whimsical. That's always been a part of how I like to write. So this piece has some of that in here too. But also I really love, like one of my all-time favorite poets, just so anybody's curious, is Langston Hughes. And Langston Hughes, he's a poet that rose to prominence in the Harlem Renaissance in the 1930s. And he was known for jazz poetry. He was among some of the first artists who he would do live poetry readings with a jazz band. And I like to think of that as like the beginnings of hip hop, right? It would be a live jazz. You can actually find videos of this on YouTube, old black and white photos. Some people don't realize this. But you can look up Langston Hughes jazz poetry and see him performing live with a jazz band behind him. It's really cool. Another thing I didn't realize until I started really studying him and his work is that he was a contemporary with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Like he was around the same time, and it's been said that they may even influence each other. So Dr. King's I Have a Dream speech references the dream, and Langston Hughes talked a great deal about dreams. He talks about what would happen to a dream deferred and other poems. And so there's some scholars that suggest that Dr. King was referencing some of Langston Hughes' poetry in some of his speeches, maybe even know how to do his speech. So, yeah, there's a little fun fact for the day. Yeah. But this poem in particular kind of carries on in that spirit of like Langston Hughes. I like to say how he was simple yet profound. Some of the other poets I like are able to say really simple things, but also play with words in a way. And that's what I like to do in this piece. It's called Commercial Break. It's a poem about self-worth. We interrupt your regularly scheduled programming for a commercial break, or for all our sakes, a break from commercials. Before it's too late for me to escape the irresistible urge to splurge on the new shoes with the new shoelaces, new blue jean and a new tee that match my new blazer, new watch, new shades, and a new bracelet. Consumerism is consuming me with 5 easy payments, but don't gain the world and lose your soul. You got something inside more beautiful than all the riches you could own. Don't be bought and sold. 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 We try to put a price tag on the priceless. I couldn't tell you what the value of life is, but if they could sell it, everybody would buy it. That's my guess. Why do I buy products without thinking of the byproduct? I think I need it. I want it to the week after I got it, and then I forget about it. If I'm honest, confessing, accessories are necessary. When some folks don't have access to necessities. Unless I've agreed there's a greed that gets the best of me, there'll always be a need for those who have less than me, but don't gain the world and lose your soul. You got something inside more beautiful than all the riches you could own. Don't be bought and sold. 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 A culture of merchandise hurts our pocketbooks and purses, but our heart takes the worst hit when we worship these purchases. The more we yearn to gain, the more we waste in this evasive chase. Our search for work is purposeless until we come to terms with this. God's love for us is perfect, and there ain't no earning it. So don't gain the world and lose your soul. You got something inside more beautiful than all the riches you could own. Don't be bought and sold. 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 That's right there. So I really love the opportunity to share my poetry. I really appreciate you all creating the space for it and just rocking with me, just vibing with me. I want to share 2 more pieces, and then we can have some conversation if y'all are interested in that. But the next piece I want to share, I get the opportunity to go to a lot of universities and high schools and churches. Oftentimes I'll see signs that'll say, all are welcome, or we love everyone. And then I have the thought of, that's cool, but do you really mean everyone? Like everyone? Because I know some people who may not feel like they're welcome in this space. And there may be times where I may even feel like that person. Maybe some of you all can relate, right? Maybe you've gone to a space where you're like, I don't know if I'm included in that everyone. If this place was actually intentionally meant for me. I think there's a difference between saying all are welcome and we created this with you in mind, right? And how do we learn that difference, right? How do we develop communal ways of being where everyone truly does have a sense of belonging, right? And so I wrote this piece to ask that question. I don't always have the answers. So don't expect me to come up with all the answers. I think we get to figure this out together. I learned a long time ago that if art proposes to have all the answers, it's not art, it's propaganda, right? But I like to ask questions. How do we live more deeply into the questions together? And so when it comes to being an inclusive community, a community that truly offers an authentic welcome and a sense of belonging, I think that's something we got to figure out together. One of the practices that I have, I call it compassionate curiosity or appreciative inquiry. Compassionate curiosity, that's about minimizing the assumed characteristics and maximizing the discovered characteristics when it comes to meeting people, right? How do we not just make assumptions and have the closed book and think we have it figured out, but to open up the book and say, you know what, I'm going to turn towards awe and wonder and curiosity and really dig deeper into those questions. And so this poem here is called Who is Your Everyone? So it's turning towards that question that I hope we can ask together as a community. We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out one day. I think we are starting to figure it out more and more. Who is your everyone? Who is your everyone? Is it only those in the country you were born in, or migrant workers whose customs and cultures may seem foreign? Is it only those in our churches Sunday morning, or the non-religious, or Jews, or Muslims, or Mormons? With who does our everyone begin or end? Is it only those with our zip code, our language, our skin? Can our vision extend beyond us versus them towards a bridge of love, where true justice bends, where all our walls crumble and fall between those people who make us feel so uncomfortable? Different and distant, they seem so unlovable. But come closer. You'll discover that God loves them too. No more, no less, but just as much as you. This is the truth we often may forget. There is a table that offers all a place to sit. That of a transformational relationship. And we celebrate everyone's human sacredness. We are them, and they are us, all created in God's image. Who is your everyone? So I think you keep asking those questions together. You figure out this thing, figure out how to live in the world we long to live in together. Like I said, I don't have all the answers, but I have just some practices that I can offer, and I'm willing to walk alongside you as we figure it out. I do want to invite you also. So I get a lot of opportunities to go to different churches and schools, and a lot of times when I'm in those spaces, like the people who are there are already like at the church. Like on Sunday morning or something, I go to preach or go to share poetry. But I'm really excited about one of my performances at the end of this month. I'm doing a concert with my band. So I have a full band. We do soul and funk music, and it's for the whole family. And so I have a concert on Sunday, May 29th from 3 to 5 at the Hopkins Center of the Arts. So I just want to shout that out. If anybody wants to come through, if you want more information, you can come talk to me. And I also put a lot of my stuff out on social media and on my website and stuff. But it'd be amazing to see some of you all come out. It's not just going to be my band. There's also going to be a gospel choir. There's a gospel singer named Cortland Pickens. He has a youth choir called Known. So they're going to be performing. And another artist named Shavonda Brown, who's just a phenomenal powerhouse singer. So there'll be those 3 acts from 3 to 5 p.m. And I'm headlining, closing it out with my band. And so some of the poems that I even shared today, there's like song versions of them. And so you get to hear that, how it sounds with like a trumpet and piano and singers and dancers. It's going to be a really good time. So, and it's donation based too. So money, it doesn't need to be a barrier. So whatever, it's pay what you can. We really wanted to make it as accessible as possible, especially, since it's been a long time since we've been able to gather as a community, right? It feels really good to be in person and to do poetry and music again live. And so that's available to anybody who wants to tap in to that. So, yeah. I think I'll close this out with one more piece. It's my favorite piece to perform. It's called Show Up. Some of you all have heard it before, but I don't think you can ever hear it enough. This is something that I know I myself need to hear again and again and again. But it just speaks to the beauty and the power of bringing your full self. Even when it's messy and awkward and uncomfortable, one of my favorite quotes is, you can't learn and look good at the same time. Right? And so figuring out how to do this life thing and figuring out how to be community together, like it's going to be really messy sometimes. But I think if we continue to show up, I promise you something amazing is going to happen. That's what this poem is about. Show up. We've each been called to this place, this time and this season. You may not yet know the rhyme or the reason. You may not feel, think, or believe in the same things I believe in, but we've been asked to show up. Show up wherever you are from. You can come here and be free. Bring your full selves, both your head and your heart, your hands and your feet, and anything and everything infinitely beyond any duality or sexuality, gender, race, age, or ability. We all have the ability to be. Without you, I'm incomplete. Without you, there's no we. I need you not to survive, but to thrive. Become fully awake and alive with potential and possibility. Join me at the table, for it is wide and there is lots of food to eat. So show up and be fed and feed others, satiating a different kind of hunger, fueling the fire in our bellies. No matter what journey you're on, where you've been, or what you've done, all will be well, and we're all welcome to laugh, cry, dance, fight, breathe, and bleed into the margins and follow God's call into the farthest reaches of who we are. Whether you run, walk, crawl, even if you fall, we fall in love. Just show up. Show up to answer God's call to justice, to transform both the soul and the bodily world the soul inhabits. Show up with all your awkwardness and bad habits. Show up with your doubts and with your questions. And when here, you can ask them. Show up with your wounds, your scars. We all have baggage. Know that together, we can unpack it. This is no mistake. You're not here by accident. You are here to share the stories of your sacred passage. You are the only you that ever has been. You are not the magician. You are the magic. So show up. In this place here, where there's no grace period, there's only grace, period. Bring your fears and insecurities. Let us marvel in the mystery. Let us listen to each other to life with a deep, holy listening. Can you hear it? Can you hear it? As the sound of the genuine within you. The Spirit stirring near you, but if you don't show up, how can anyone hear you? Show up, even if you don't know for certain. You may have the truth and healing for which this world is searching. In this grand universe, we're with small workers with a big purpose because of our hearts widening the circle. Hearts that are broken, hearts that are open so a little light can shine through with the hope of the hopeless. Wherever you go, simply know the Spirit of this place goes with you. So go. Ready with sleeves rolled up, always growing, never fully grown up. Ready with all your heart, mind, body, and soul. Simply to show up. Thank y'all for showing up. It's been an honor and a joy to be with you all. I don't know if anyone has any questions or comments, but we'll have some space for that as well. Yeah.
I'm just amazed with the powerful words, but I keep wondering, how do you come up with the phrasing and the pauses? Do you do it in front of a mirror? Do you do it to a computer and play it back? How's that process work?
Yeah, I think it's different with each poem, but the biggest part is about repetition. I always say you do best what you do most. So practice, practice, practice. It's just like, a lot of times I work with high school students who are young writers and young performers. I say, hey, a lot of you all are already in sports or you're playing music instruments and you gotta play that flute a bajillion times. You gotta keep playing it. Sometimes your parents are like going crazy because they keep hearing it, right? Or you're on the court practicing dribbling how to, or in the field with the soccer ball. And so just doing it again and again and again. And sometimes that's just me sitting in the living room on the couch, just like writing and saying the words again and again. And even there's times where I'll go to open mics or when I'm with a friend and I'm like reading it out loud and kind of getting a sense of how does it feel, how does it sound. Even that poem that I read off of my phone, Don't Show Up, like I've only read that a few times, like probably like all together, I probably only read it out loud like maybe 20 times or something. And so the more that I read it though, the more I'll internalize it, it'll become a part of me. And then even as I'm saying it, like I'll start to find new texture and complexity, and I'll find ways to like shape my body how I want it to be communicated as well. So it's kind of this process of playfulness and experimentation and exploration, but it starts a lot with repetition, just practicing and coming back to it again and again and again. So yeah, it's a great question. Thank you. I don't know if that kind of responded to what you're saying. Yeah. Yeah, I see your hand back here and then we'll go here. Yeah.
Yeah, Joe, so as the show up guy, and the first time I heard show up, I found it very powerful. I have to admit that I'm surprised by don't show up.
Yeah, right? A lot of people are. Yeah.
So I want you to know that if you do a hoodie with show up, And don't show up on the back, I'll buy that.
I got to figure out how we might market that one. I don't know.
And then the next thing is, so what have you learned? So far from don't show up, what have you learned? I think a lot of people, myself included, struggle with saying no.
Yeah.
Especially in the right way.
Yes.
Have you learned something from it yet?
No, like I said, the first time I ever performed that was just a couple nights ago at this conference. But I've been in conversation with people about it, even as I was writing it. And I was like just praying about it and contemplating about it. And I can say what you said resonates with me. And I think a lot of other people can relate too. Is I don't know if it's just culturally, especially as folks who are in ministry and who have these commitments in the world to our family, the schools. Like we want to show up to people. We want to do this good work in the world. So sometimes it gets really hard to say no, right? But I think it's a practice just like anything else. And I think there are ways to honor yourself and to honor the people. As a matter of fact, I think that oftentimes when we say no, that's one way of honoring people, creating those healthy boundaries. That's really what it's about. And so when it comes to what I've learned, I think it's about just being really direct. One of my mentors says, you can be firm and friendly. And so how do I tell people, hey, I can't do this. I don't have the capacity, or like I need to take care of myself. It doesn't mean I'm rejecting you, or I'm not saying no to you, to your lovableness and your value and your worth. I'm saying no so that I can actually still take care of myself and maybe show up to something else. So that phrase, let your no make room for your yes, I keep coming back to that again and again. That's what I've been learning. And it's incomplete. I'm still learning it. I still need a lot of practice, right? But that's what I come back to. And I keep reminding myself, okay, yeah, when I say no to something, it's because I'm just taking care of myself. I'm taking care of other people too when I say it. So, yeah. Thank you for that question. It's a great question. Yeah. Any other? I think I saw your. Yeah.
You mentioned that you were trained at Lutheran Seminary.
I was, yes.
And I wondered if you could say a little bit about how that has shaped. I mean, in some ways, I see it all through this. But would you articulate a little bit about that experience and who you are?
For sure, yeah. So the question was about being trained at Lutheran Seminary. So I was the artist in residence at Lutheran, and I also got a master's in theology of the arts. And admittedly, I didn't want to go. Like, I never in a bajillion years thought I was going to go to seminary. I'm just an artist in the streets, in the community. But a lot of my friends and mentors were already working at Luther or attending Luther. I remember distinctly one time, I mean, they were already trying to get me for years. They were like, you should go to seminary. I was like, nah, I'm good. and then I remember one day in particular, I was there. I had lunch with one of my friends who works there. And he said, you want to just come over to my office? And as we were walking around campus, I kept running into different instructors. And, oh, yeah, we know about you and your work. You would be so great as the artist in residence here. And I was like, the artist in residence? My ears kind of perked up a little bit. I never heard of that before. They had an artist in residence program. And they said, hey, it was still relatively young then. They had only had like 2 other artists in residence prior to me. And they're saying, if that's your position that you hold, you get to study whatever you want to study, and they'll cover it for you. And then you can get your master's or your MDiv or whatever you want. So I was like, okay, that sounds kind of cool. Maybe I'll check it out. And so I went through the application process, kind of half-heartedly, to be completely honest with you. And then, long story short, I got in, and I was like, oh, so now I actually got to do this thing. And I kind of stumbled into it. But after I went through it, I was like, okay, yeah, I'm supposed to be here. Because I learned so much. I was really stretched. It taught me why I believe what I believe. It taught me why I don't believe what I don't believe. And it also showed me some new things about what I believe, and like the history and the culture of church. And so I'm really grateful that I've had that experience. I think it really shaped me as a theologian. Prior to going to Lutheran Seminary, I don't know if I would have identified as a theologian, but I now am of the belief that everyone is a theologian. If you're talking about God, you're a theologian, right? That's really all that means, is you're talking about your relationship with God. And now I've been able to recognize that I do have pastoral gifts. I don't feel called to be a clergy, to be, over a church, but I do know that I have pastoral gifts in the sense of being in community and walking alongside people on their spiritual journeys. I know that's something that God has called me to, and I was able to identify that because of my time at seminary. So, yeah. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So, yeah.
She had her hand up over there.
Oh, for sure.
Oh,
yeah.
me?
Did you have a
Oh,
question?
I was just going to comment on what you were saying about boundaries. There's a really great book, some of you might know, called Boundaries by Dr. Cloud and Dr. Townsend. And they even used to do boundaries classes. Yeah, actually it's a whole series. There's like general boundaries, that's like 250 pages, and then they do boundaries in marriage or boundaries with your kids. And just chapter by chapter goes through very specifically like how you can, kind of what you were saying, be friendly but firm, but how do you tell your next door neighbor, hey, can you not do, or whatever. It gives so many different scenarios and how you can take back your power and your energy so that you can give with joy and that you can find that balance of yes and no. So, Boundaries book series, friends.
Yes, thank you for sharing that. I think we need resources. We need as many as we can get, so let's keep sharing those. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Yeah, yes.
I was sort of raised on Shakespeare, but when I got to college, I read Langston Hughes.
Yes.
And the first exposure to real, what I call real poetry. But I don't think I was ever really slain in my seat like I was watching the inauguration of Amanda Gorman.
Yeah.
What I want to know is, have you ever had that thunderbolt hit you? Who was it? And did it still influence you?
Yeah, well, I am a huge fan of Amanda Gorman. I tell the students that I work with, she's making my job easy. Like, because I go to schools and my role is to convince kids that poetry is cool, that they can have fun doing poetry, that it can be educational and empowering. All I got to do is show them Amanda Gorman. She just makes it so easy. She's definitely someone who inspires me. I would love to meet her someday and sit down and talk with her. But who else? I'm trying to think. I was saying over dinner, one of my favorite local poets is an artist by the name of Guante. It's Guante, Guante. His real name is Kyle. So you can check out some of his stuff. He's just a fire, just electric poet. He's a powerhouse. He's someone I would name. I'm trying to think of others who will go on my list as well. And sometimes it's not always like that really just like spitfire, rapid poetry that like cuts straight to my heart. Sometimes it's like really soft, tender, beautiful words that like just make me want to weep and like, wow, I'm just really moved by this. I think some poets who do that for me have been Maya Angelou. She's one of my favorite poets. Like I call her Mama Maya, because she's really shaped me as a poet and as a human being. So I would put her out there as well. And then one of my favorite poets of all time is Rumi. So anyone ever read any Rumi? He's an ancient Persian poet. He's just so wise. Like his stuff is just so profound. So I mean, those are just some poets that I'm influenced by. Hopefully that responds to your question. Yeah. A lot of young poets too. Like when I get to go to schools, like some days when I look at the news and I'm out in the world, I'm like, man, are we gonna be okay? I go to a high school and I work with young folks and like, we're gonna be all right. We're gonna be okay because these kids are on fire. Yeah, they know what's up. Yeah.
I guess, where were you in your journey when your poetry went from just a notebook tucked in under your pillow to being publicly proclaimed without it being like a school assignment?
Yeah. So I started off just writing for fun as a kid, and then I started taking it more seriously. I was still in elementary school, but a definitive part of my journey was I got really, really sick when I was in school. I got so sick one time I passed out on the bathroom floor, was rushed to the emergency room, was hospitalized. And during that period in my life, for several years, in and out of the hospital, I would use poetry as a way to cope. That was my way of like processing what I was going through. When I didn't know how to talk about it to my parents or my friends, I could just write about it. And so that's when I like kind of tapped into this kind of therapeutic power and this healing power of poetry. And at first it was just for me. It was this deeply vulnerable personal journey. And then when I went back to school, I had mentors and teachers who were, oh, this is really good stuff. You should share this with the rest of the class. And I didn't want to do it at first. So I was like, I don't know. They might judge me. They might try to throw a shoe at my head or something. You know, and I just didn't know. But then some of the first times that I ever shared, I had people who were my age like, oh, wow, like, I never knew you went through this before. And then we were able to relate to each other. And I used to think that I was the only one who thought the way that I thought, or the only one who felt the way that I felt. And when I started to share, there was this human connection. And then I was like, wow, if I can connect with one person or like inspire just one person, then this is what I want to do. And it never occurred to me that it would be a career. It was just a passion. And I oftentimes say, I don't write for a living, I write for my life. Because it was something that was so powerfully transformative for me. And I realized that it could offer the same for other people, and I just kept doing it, and then, that's kind of where the Spirit just pulled me. I'm just trying to keep up with the Spirit. And so I had, like, a lot of you all know David Shearer, Agape. That's one of my best friends and one of my mentors. He jokingly says I'm his mentor now. But, I started a tour with him, like, over a decade ago. I remember seeing him at a concert he was performing. I was speaking at this conference, and he was performing at the conference. Like, I didn't even know who he was, but I was like, oh, he's cool. I kind of want to do that. We had a conversation, and I was like, I want to do what you do. He's like, yeah, well, let's keep talking about it. And long story short, I ended up going on tour with him and became friends with him and others, and that was something that also opened up a whole world for me too. So I got to shout him out, as well as like community members who booked me and asked me to come out and stuff. Like literally, I say I'm not an independent artist. I'm an interdependent artist. Like the only way that I can do what I do, I'm in the gig economy. Everything that I do is because people book me, because they buy a hoodie or they buy a book. Like that's how I'm able to do what I do. So it's because of folks like you, because of Pastor John and others. So thank you sincerely. Like thank you for allowing me to do what I love and what I feel called to in the world. So yeah.
You guys want to keep going? We'll keep going. So,
I'm just hanging out.
Yeah, and I think we can kind of end this formal part, and then if you're around for a little bit, and chat to people if you want to come back and check out the merchandise. But thank you all for showing up. Thank you for sharing your gifts, your story. So let's give Joe another. We share story and we hear story and we enter the story together. That is how we honor God. That's how we honor each other. So thank you for being present for that tonight. And we're going to keep doing this in May, week after week, where we can hear more story and be community together again. So thank you again. Thank you all for coming. And I'm going to close us in prayer.
Please do. Yes.
Loving God, we just pray for your presence. We thank you for being with us.